Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to today's live session. I'm super excited for the incredible conversations that we are going to have today because I wanted to share something very personal and empowering with you, something that has played the most pivotal role in any and all success that I have been able to create in my life. I've often found myself searching sometimes for a tip and trick here and there as well that can get me to quicker success. I found myself searching on YouTube and looking at videos about the one technique that can manifest all the success you want. And while I am a firm believer on the power of energy and on the power of manifestation, there's something very powerful that has recently seeped in as a realization for me and has actually helped me take my success further with or without any technique that might be out there. Rather than depending on external techniques or tips and tricks, I've now found a way to create consistent results by being dependent on myself, which is actually the only factor that I can control. And that's why today I want to talk to you about this one superpower technique that controls them all. The moment you can master this one, the moment you can understand this perspective and mindset shift that we'll be talking about today, the miracle you will unlock is incredible. You will be able to grow, succeed, and feel fulfilled in every area of your life, regardless of how fast you're succeeding or the results you're creating. Think about it. The reason we want a lot of success, a lot of growth, a lot of money, a lot of recognition, a lot of importance, a lot of love is because we want to feel certain feelings in our lives. And the most important one of them is to feel fulfilled, is to feel as if there's a purpose to our lives, as if there's a path that we can take that makes this whole thing of existence worth it. Like, we're spending so many years on this planet. If we've been given the power of thinking, we might as well make the best of it, right? Well, to do that, it's not just any random technique that's going to take you to the extraordinary. It's something fundamental that unlocks your growth and your success in life. The day you understand this fundamental, which is today for you now that you're watching this live session, or whenever you're watching it, if you're watching it later on recording, because this one principle, even though it sounds very simple, is the most powerful one. So to make sure I get this right, I'm going to be looking down for a second because I want to confirm that I'm getting this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson right, because this quote holds so much power and so much strength that when you think about all the big things that are happening in your life or all the small challenges that are coming up, the power that exists in you is always unlimited. Now, I'm not saying that as just this random metaphysical thing or something like that, or a positive thinking secret that all the power is in you. No, that's not what I mean by it. What I mean is the brain that you have here, the neuroscience that's there, the capacity to think everything that you're thinking is so unique and so incredible that that's where the power of creation lies. And the day you tap into that power of creation is the day the superpower technique starts working for you. So, what Ralph Waldo Emerson said was that as to methods, there can be a million and then some. As to methods, there can be a million and then some, but principles are a few. A man a man who masters principles can use any technique or method that comes his way, but a man who relies only on methods is sure to have trouble. Now, I personally find it to be a very interesting perspective on life. It's pretty crazy that he wrote this, I think, in the 1800s or something like that. And ever since then, rather than the world focusing on first principles, the world is only diverted and focused more on techniques and tips and methods and all the other surface level stuff that doesn't require deep work. But my life has changed only because I was able to focus on the fundamentals of life, on the fundamentals of creating progress, on the fundamentals of business, on the fundamentals of speaking, on the first principles of everything that I'm doing. So rather than being dependent on a trick, rather than being dependent on a tip that I learned from someone, I'm independent to handle any situation that I want, any situation that's coming my way. So I'll give you a simple example here. One of the biggest reasons the work of coaching is so fulfilling and empowering for me is there's always a bit of uncertainty going into a call. Yes, I have a structure. Yes, I have everything planned out, the way I want to lead the journey forward and the transformation I want to create. But there's always something serendipitous that happens in every session that I do. And there, if I'm dependent on just a framework, or if I'm dependent on just a technique to help me get through the coaching session, I'll stumble when something out of the way comes forth, right? Because I did not expect it. But my coaching doesn't work on those principles. Learning from Ralph Waldo Emerson, learning from many other eminent thinkers, learning from the people who've inspired me, I learned that if you have to succeed, you have to be humble enough to build out first principles, to look at what's really making the coaching work. What are the foundational tenets that are the ones that are driving the success of the work you're doing? And as I've become clear on that, I've recognized I don't need a framework to do the coaching. I don't need a technique to create the results because I'm approaching every conversation from the fundamentals of human behavior, human psychology, and why we do what we do. Having understood those first principles, any and every situation that comes my way, I'm able to understand it for what it is rather than trying to fit it into a framework of my own or rather than just trying to fit it into a technique that I have mastered. As Charlie Munger used to say, to a man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. I'll repeat that sentence. To a man with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. So if you're walking around with just a hammer in your hand, but the problem in front of you requires another tool, it requires something else, it requires a drill instead, that's not going to work out in your favor. But if you twist the situation saying, oh no, I have a hammer, the hammer's going to work, well, you're in for disappointment. You're in for a surprise. When you learn to build the whole tool set instead, you gain wisdom and you gain clarity on who you want to be and on the success you want to create. So, if you want to create miracles in your life and if you want to superpower your growth, bring your focus back to first principles, not just techniques. In whatever field you are working in, ask yourself, what are the foundational principles that I'm not actually aware of? What are the strategies that create the base of the whole system? How does everything interact together? Might seem like a bit of a boring stuff, but understand it in depth, and you become someone who's invincible. You become someone who is powerful enough. Like, I'll give you a very simple example. There are a lot of people right now who are scared about the AI takeover on jobs, on IT, on software engineering, on a lot of the other stuff, right? In fact, I know a few people who are in my circle who are software engineers, and having talked to them, I can see how prevalent the risk and the fear of AI taking over is. Why? Because they built their professional success and professional life on just one skill and one technique of being able to master software engineering. Now, that's the difference between them and someone who's not scared of AI at all, not because AI is not going to take their software engineering skills. It is going to do that. It is already doing that. But because the other set of people who are not afraid have understood the fundamental role that human beings play in any workplace. That it's going to be about decisions, it's going to be about strategy, it's going to be about thinking, no longer about execution. And as they're mastering the first principles of that set of skills, they're already becoming AI proof in a world that's scrambling to bring everything together and to deal with the complexity and rapid speed of the changes. Now, for the first group, that fear, that doubt, what will happen is natural because they're having trouble. They were relying on a technique. But the second group, they were able to adapt and they are able to adapt much better to AI and all the changes because they approached it from the first principles of what constitutes great work. They answered that question first for themselves. They got clarity on those ideas. And when they were absolutely clear about that, AI or no AI, they can implement the same principles regardless of what their job profile says they do. And if they're a master at implementing those first principles, they create success anywhere they go, like magic on autopilot. In fact, that's one of the most powerful things about coaching, which I absolutely love, because of which I keep going through my own coaching from my mentors, because it opens up your perspectives to new things. It opens up your ideas. It opens your mind to this power that you hold within of being the best version of yourself. But for that, again, stop focusing on techniques, start focusing on the first principles instead. So, to get you started, is it okay if I share with you one of the most powerful first principles that I have learned about anything and everything in life? Like, you take any situation, and I'm not exaggerating it, but you take any situation and you apply this first principle to it, you'll have an answer, you'll have a breakthrough. That's how powerful this one idea is. So if you are ready for it, I want you to lean further. Even though I can't see you on the camera, I'm just speaking to the camera here. But I trust that you'll lean further, have that interest, because this is important, okay? Just mastering this one principle will get you so many results and will get you going so much that I know you're going to start your own search of having those first principles in your life. So, the most important first principle for me in anything that I've done has been this: if you want to be in the top one fifth of the world, you have to be in the top 20%. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but let me break it down for you, okay? If you want to be in the top one fifth of anything in the world, you have to be in the top 20%. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Prabhsimrat, well, 20% and one fifth are exactly the same thing, right? Well, yes, that is the point. The problem is, if you go in a group and you do this study, by the way, if you'd like, or you can go on the internet, you can find these resources. It's fascinating. You go to a group project, okay? Let's say there are three people there, and you ask everybody, how much have you contributed to the project, okay? Let's say person A gives a certain percentage, person B gives a certain percentage, and person C gives a certain percentage. You add all those percentages. You know what the total contribution percentage comes out to? Always more than 150%. And we know that cannot be true. So essentially what's happening is everybody is overestimating the percentage they have contributed to the success, because everybody wants to feel good about themselves. So just like that may seem like a harsh reality check, but if you think you're in the top 20% of the world in all the actions that you do, maybe in some areas you definitely are, but if you think of yourself in that top 20% on all levels, ask yourself this: are you doing what the top 20% do? Are you living the way the top 20% live? Because if not, you may be somewhere deluding yourself into thinking you're very extraordinary when you're probably just above average. Now, I'm not discouraging you, I'm not saying you cannot be extraordinary, but what I'm saying is the math doesn't lie, the reality doesn't lie. You can keep deluding yourself, but who you cannot delude is the real factual world outside. And if you want to be in the top 20%, your actions have to be different. Your thinking has to be different. Your approach to life has to be different. Your approach to learning first principles has to be a lot different. And you have to accept this fact that exceptional life requires exceptional work. An extraordinary life requires me to show up in an extraordinary way. Now, if the world calls that extraordinary as boring or sad or not fun and all these other acronyms that get attached to it, you got to be okay with that, right? Because your aim is not to be in the bottom four fifth, your aim is to be in the top one fifth. The top one fifth are going to do things differently. This simple realization can bring you so much peace, because the idea of FOMO then completely vanishes from your mind. When you realize the bottom four fifth of the world is not your comparison group at all, it's some another standard entirely, then what the common people are doing, that does not affect you. You do not feel left out by that, and you can continue to create your own success. Now, in your relationships, the way this applies is simple. People have very specific ideas of what a relationship should be, but if you and your partner are 100% clear on what your exceptional relationship looks like, you don't have to explain it to anyone. If it works for you, it works for you. Just like that, in your career, if there are certain skills you need to build, or certain actions you need to take, or certain approaches you need to have, just implementing this first principle: what do I need to do to be in the top one fifth of this field? Not even the top 1%, just the top one fifth. And when you see how many people there really are, you'll see it's not that hard, but it's not that easy either. So you can approach it with a lens of balance and humility and a learning attitude rather than an arrogant attitude where you say, oh, you know what? I know everything. I'm the best. No, there's always scope to improve. So, that, my friends, is the most powerful first principle I have learned. It comes courtesy of Charlie Munger and his incredible thinking. That's one person I always have admired, and I will always consider one of the most important mentors in my life. And I hope this can help you get that breakthrough too. Because when you stop deluding yourself and really look at the reality that, you know what, the numbers are not going to lie. If I have to be in the top 20%, my actions have to be like the top 20%. My feelings, thoughts, and beliefs have to be like the top 20%. Everything starts aligning for the better the day you can make it happen. So the superpower technique is to have first principles, and I've just given you one to try out, to experiment. And when you start approaching life from this lens, I'm telling you, you're gonna fall in love with first principles and the way they work. And once you learn how incredibly foundational and powerful they are, you'll no longer look for tricks and tips again. You'll use them, you'll believe in them, but you won't depend on them desperately thinking that the power is outside of you, because as I said in the start, you have unlimited power. Not because I'm just saying it for the sake of it, but because your mind has the power to process things from first principles and create new realities out of nothing. Honor that magic, honor that miracle. Do not waste it by being complacent in your thinking. Sharpen it as much as you can, and even AI will never be able to take over your job. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope this gave you a bit more clarity. And tomorrow, day after, I'd love to know how trying out this new first principle is going for you as well. And I'll see you once again at the same time, that is 8:30 p.m. IST tomorrow. Bye. See you soon.